Thanks. I purposely asked Elizabeth to introduce me that way because I wanted to make a point at the outset of my presentation today. Last week I was in San Diego speaking to the San Diego Bar Association, and it was a good room, 218 people. When you're used to speaking to 10, 20 people at a time, 218 people is a very good sized room. I get up and I'm waiting off to the side, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and the speech is supposed to start. 15 minutes pass by, and the guy in the back of the room who was signing people in at the door stands up and he goes, "You can start any time." And that was pretty much the introduction. So from that point, I knew that it was going to be quite a ride. It turned out it was a great speech, but that was not the worst introduction I've ever received, believe it or not. Back in 2003, I was working for the Gallup organization, and I was asked to speak for Sutherland Lumber. They're a 60-store chain, and they have about 100 salespeople in each store. They're actually bigger than Home Depot in the Midwest. They called me out there to do a Salesforce effectiveness talk right at the beginning of a 2-day rah-rah event. So I was really excited. I'm the first speaker. They rented out this theater in Overland Park, Kansas, okay? Really quaint old theater. And I'm waiting in the wing, and the guy who's supposed to introduce me is not there. Lights are down. Guy's not there. All of a sudden, he walks in the back door, walks right by me, doesn't say a word to me, walks out on stage and he goes, "Turn the lights up, please." Turns the lights up, crowd begins to stir a little bit, and the gentleman says, "Folks, we have somebody here today who's going to give us some great information. He's going to really help you improve your sales, but as I'm sure you've heard, we're going to cancel the rest of the program after that." And everybody in the room starts shifting in their seats, there's a murmur, and he says to them, "You may be aware, some of you may not, but Dwight Sutherland, the patriarch of our fine establishment, was shot and killed last night in his home. So right after this talk, those of you who want to go comfort the Sutherland family, you're welcome to do so. They'll be receiving people at their home." And now, ladies and gentlemen, Dave Lorenzo. So I walked out on that stage, and at that point, I will tell you, quite frankly, that what I was saying in my head was practically happening in my pants, because I was scared to death. But the talk ended up being one of the best talks I've ever given to date. The reason why is because I completely changed the talk. It was not about Salesforce effectiveness any longer. It was about overcoming adversity. It was about coming together as a team, and it was about focusing on the future while difficult conditions were in the present. The group responded very well as they could under those circumstances, and it resulted in a significant amount of business for us. Now, why do I tell you that? I tell you that because what I do with attorneys today is I provide that same type of thing. I provide attorneys with three things. I provide them with confidence, I provide them with capability, and I provide them with clarity of purpose. When I took that stage that day, the clarity of my purpose completely changed. In an instant, it completely changed. And that's the way life is. All of us have to completely change the clarity of our purpose depending upon who our clients are. And to be able to do that requires a significant, shall we say, nimbleness of foot. And I can help attorneys with that. When it comes to capability, many people, when I first walk up to the front of a room, or when I sit down with an attorney for the first time, wonder, who is this guy and why should I listen to him? And I will tell you that over the past 7 years, I've taken, on average, 30 calls a day from attorneys. That seems like a lot. Usually the conversations are quick, sometimes they're longer, but 30 calls a day. I do it 5 days a week. I take 2 weeks off a year, so if you multiply 30 times 5 times 52 times 7, that's over 10,500 conversations with attorneys. I've heard a lot of stuff from these folks. And when you hear that much, situations tend to repeat themselves. So my capability in advising an attorney on business strategy, on practice management, on productivity improvement is significant. So that's one of the things that differentiates me from everyone else who does what I do. Now, I will give you an example of who a fantastic client for me is. And there's really two different types of clients that I want you to think about. The first type of client is a person who's on their own and they're in a law firm and the firm is growing. The gentleman just spoke ahead of me, Bart Shepnick. His firm is a great firm. Those type of folks who are really at the top of their game, who are looking to grow at an expedited rate, those people are great referrals for me. They're not Greenberg Traurig. I'd love to work with Greenberg Traurig. I'd love to work with somebody in a leadership capacity there. But they're at a point where any amount of money that they make, any increase incrementally, improves their quality of life. Fantastic client for me. In addition, if I can help a firm like that improve the productivity that they have within their firm, if I can help the partners work a little less, that improves the quality of their life. And that's the mission and purpose of my company. That's what we're all about. And if I convey that to the attorney when I meet him, and my preferred way to meet them is in person at a lunch, I'd love it. I'd be thrilled. Second group of people who'd be great introductions for me are groups that are this size that get together. They're voluntary bar associations. So Mark Hurwitz has been very kind and introduced me to the Dade County Bar Association. There are other voluntary bar associations. For example, I spoke in Collier County a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic opportunity. Groups of 10, 20 or more, they don't have to pay me to speak. My payoff comes down the road when folks who've seen me speak there end up retaining me as my clients. So those are two things to think about when you're thinking of who great referrals are for me. Now, there are some kids in the room today, so I'm going to close with a story that really kind of gets to the essence of how you can manifest this clarity, this commitment, and a real focus on the capability that you have. I was having dinner about a year ago, and there was a knock at our front door, and I go to the front door, and there's two kids standing there. A shorter kid, glasses, shirt impeccably pressed, but it's a school uniform shirt with slacks. Tall kid, kind of, goofy looking, a little bit overweight, shirt maybe not covering his belly completely, mustard stain, got an Iron Man patch on his pants because there's a hole in his pants. I open the door and the little kid says, "Hi, my name is Ronald, and this is Bernard." I look at Ronald, I look up at Bernard. Bernard's got a big smile, right? And he says, "We are selling chocolate bars to raise money for a trip. We're going to go to Tallahassee." He says to me, "These chocolate bars were donated, and I want you to know that because every dollar that we get goes directly to funding our trip." He says that his parents have agreed to pay for half of each kid's trip, and he tells me that Bernard is his cousin and he's staying with him because Bernard's father is an over-the-road truck driver and they hit on some hard financial times and they wanted to move in with them so that they could get through the next 6 to 8 months. And I said, "Wow, that's really interesting. How much have you raised so far?" And he said, "Well, sir, I'm glad you asked." And I knew at that point that I was going to get soaked for some big bucks. He said, "I'm glad you asked." He said, "The trip for both of us cost $150 and so far we've sold 48 chocolate bars." And I said, "How much are the chocolate bars?" He said, "Well, you can give us whatever you want, but typically people give us $1. They're $1 a piece." I looked at those two kids and I thought to myself, here's somebody who clearly differentiates themselves. Here's someone who has phenomenal clarity of purpose. And here's somebody who has the capability to raise as much money as he wants, whether it's now or later on in life. So, knowing what a soft touch I am, my wife is just standing behind me. She hands me the checkbook. And as I wrote the check for $102, I said, "I only really need one chocolate bar because I'm trying to lose some weight." My friends, I will tell you that confidence, capability, and clarity will get you through life no matter what your role is. And it has been my honor and privilege to be in front of you for the past 5 years. And I'm grateful for every moment that I've been able to be here. Thank you.